Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by Pete Worth, who is on the end of the line. Just a couple of days ago, Marquette got a resounding victory over the Providence College Friars. And I got to tell you, if you're looking at Marquette's season, that was one of the best indicators you could see from this Marquette team because it was a team win. Everybody contributed. What a win to get, and we still got 4 games left.
It was a beautiful, beautiful victory that made me crawl around on the ground with my legs and hands in the air, kind of just wriggling around in giddiness.
I believe the word you used in the moment was writhing.
Writhing. Yeah, I was writhing in giddiness on the ground after Markus Howard made that deep, deep three. That game and that performance, that team performance, led the thought that came into my head that this is the best basketball team I've ever watched at Marquette, going back to the beginning of my fandom and your fandom in 2005.
I had never thought about it until, at least in those terms, until you had said that. I think you're right. Like, you know, we were just talking before we hopped on, the 2013 team got a share of the Big East Conference Championship. Obviously, teams have made runs in the tournament, but those runs all seem to be surprising, and I don't want to call them lucky because those guys were talented, but there was a mix of luck built into some of those that's hard to define. But this team, in this Providence win, which we're going to talk about, is a microcosm of it. They just seem to close out games, close out strong, and they just seem to keep coming at you. It's a damn good team. Whether it's the best, that's up for debate, but it is a damn good team.
Yeah, and I should say, I mean, like the Dominic James, Jarrell McNeil, Wes Matthews teams that we saw played in a lot tougher conference.
Right.
However, the offensive and defensive versatility and depth that this team has is kind of what leads me to believe that this is the best one.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Providence ain't worth a shit. I mean, they beat St. John's twice, which I guess that's good for them. We haven't been able to do that, but their offense is really, really bad. But Marquette took advantage of that, you know, and they thoroughly dominated on their floor. And winning these games decisively on the road has been really, really fun.
So that's a perfect segue right there, Peter. So Marquette got a 76-58 victory over the Providence Friars on Saturday afternoon on a nationally televised game on Fox. And you said it right there, Pete. The offensive and defensive versatility of this team is exactly what makes them so potent. Now, Providence, as you mentioned, is at the very bottom of the Big East now at 5-10. But if I had told you, Pete, that there are 2 games this year in which Markus Howard would only make 2 field goals, would you think we would win both, lose both, split? If he only made 2 field goals, you think we're going to lose, right?
Hell no, I think we're going to win because of the greatness of the rest of our team.
Well, then you are a sage basketball individual. Markus Howard only made 2 shots in this game. He had 14 points because of his ability to get to the free throw line, but he only made 2 buckets, two threes. But because of Sam Hauser, because of Joey Hauser, because of Sakara Nim, who we're going to continue to laud on this podcast, Marquette put itself in position to really throttle Providence, who, again, isn't that quality of an opponent, but still, they can defend, and they're not easy to score on. Such a tremendous all-around offensive performance. And actually, I would go so far as to say, even calibrating for the quality of Providence, I think this was one of Marquette's better wins this season, just because of how it played out, the authority with they took control down the stretch. Really, really impressive.
Yeah, I would say it was one of the best team wins of the season for sure. When you look at 5 guys in double figures with Sam, Joey, Sakar, Marcus, and Ed Morrow coming up huge in an off night for Theo, which Theo will have those. And it seems like every time he does, Ed Morrow steps up. That performance, especially in the second half, with Marcus kind of struggling, kind of injured a little bit.
Right.
Our passing, I have never seen a Marquette team pass the ball that well. And Brendan Bailey, especially, I want to kind of give a shout out to him on the Marquette went on a 12-2 run in the second half that led to my writhing. And Brendan Bailey made 2 phenomenal passes to Sam, and Sam hit the shot. In transition, the ball was moving quickly, and Bailey made the right pass, and numerous guys made the right pass throughout the game today.
Numerous guys did make the right play. Let's start in the first half just with kind of how this looked. And folks, just to be clear, we're going to get to previewing Villanova pretty quickly here, but did want to talk a little bit about Providence. I think in the first half, what we all saw from Sakar is Providence is a good defensive team. We know that. They're not too strong offensively, but they're really good defensively, to the point where you can't necessarily just run your set play and get an open look. You have to be able to pass the ball. And in particular, you have to have guys who are attacking and initiating the offense. We've always seen Sakar do this in spurts throughout his career. But over the past several games, and particularly in this game, he was looking to attack. His 3-point shot continues to be on point. He's shooting with such confidence. Sakar finished 8 for 12 from the field, and at least one point in this game, he was perfect from the field, and I think that was late in the first half. So for me with Sakar, it's all about his developing confidence. It's all about him finding a role within this offense, and it's clear that he's been able to do that. Some of the shots that he was taking throughout this game weren't the most advisable shots, if you ask me. There were a couple of long twos that he took, a couple of floaters that felt like maybe there was a better look, but they all splashed. And so the confidence that this guy is playing with is exactly what we need to really open this thing up as we head into March, as we head into the tournaments.
I thought of a Marquette comp for Sakar like 5 minutes ago. I think is really apt, and also maybe kind of out of left field because it was kind of in a obscure period of Marquette basketball, but Jawan Johnson would be my comparison.
I can see that.
It's kind of his developing confidence in his jump shot. I think Jawan was, I think they were pretty on par in terms of their athleticism. And Sakar has definitely outshone Jawan's career, I think, to this point. Jawan played all 4 years with us and was on some pretty meddling teams. But I just think that the 2 of their games were pretty similar kind of coming in. And Sakar has really kind of blossomed, as Jawan was kind of starting to do by his senior year, in getting confidence in that jump shot, knowing when to drive to the hole and being able to finish at the hole. It just so happens that he's got a bevy of other weapons around him too, and that's what makes his team so good.
And this game was never, against Providence, this game was never really in a tremendous amount of doubt. Getting towards the late part of the first half, Marquette was beginning to take control, but Pete, we were talking about it earlier, there was this stretch in the second half where Providence tried to make a little bit of a run around the 10, 12-minute mark in the second half, and Marquette answered with consecutive possessions of 3-pointers from the Hauser brothers, from Markus Howard, all of which didn't touch anything but net, were incredibly wet. Like you could hear the sound reverberating through the TV of how much nylon it was hitting.
It was almost like a chain basketball net out.
Yeah,
like
it was that loud.
The outdoor park.
It was really an incredible shooting performance there to close out the game. And that stretch of 3-pointers, that stretch of play from this team sealed that game. And Pete, to segue, that now puts us in the position where on Wednesday, when Marquette faces off against Villanova at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central on Fox Sports 1, Marquette's now got the opportunity to play itself into an outright win, or at least an outright win of the Big East Championship.
Yeah. Nova just lost to Xavier, their 3rd loss in a row, their 4th loss in 5 games. They do not look good right now. And Marquette, with a victory on Wednesday night, can claim the Big East championship, at least a share. They would only have to win one more game after that in their next 3 to win it outright. That is wonderful, wonderful news for Marquette fans.
It's amazing, and we keep getting on this pod, and I keep thinking before we jump on, like, what's the new take? What's the new thing? What's the what perspective can we bring that we haven't said before? This team just keeps playing well and finding ways to win. I think if you heard on the broadcast today with Villanova and Xavier, the announcers saying every Big East coach thinks they can win the Big East championship this year just because it's wide open. And I think that is somewhat reflective. First of all, I was like, fuck this. Second of all, I was like, I think that's somewhat reflective of people don't necessarily respect this Marquette team. It's not a team that wows you with, the recruited talent on roster. But because we are so diverse, it's like whack-a-mole. It's trying to stop everything at the same time, and it's really, really difficult to do. You have to catch this Marquette team on a complete off night. So we're going to find out on Wednesday night, and I want to dive into a little bit more of this Villanova game and things that we can expect.
Well, one thing that I wanted to add on that was that I think coaches are starting to believe that and starting to respect the Marquette team, especially after games like these last 2 have been pretty much blowouts that we've created in the second half of games. Paint Touches wrote that article about, does this team have a switch as an indicator of great teams? And it definitely seems like this one does. Not having Marcus's best performance like we talked about, the steady improvement of Sakar, the capabilities of Theo and Ed and everybody kind of just performing their role, embracing everybody else's role. In the middle of the Big East season, we were eking out these wins. We're starting to just really hammer teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of changing the mindsets of Big East coaches. I don't really talk to Jay Wright or Kevin Willard regularly, but I would venture to guess that.
We are in a point in the season where you kind of know what you're getting from the opponent. So teams know what they're getting out of Marquette. There's enough tape on this team now. It's not like we're in November to be improving as the season progresses. I think we've said it on the past 10 pods. This is attributable ultimately to Coach Wojciechowski and his coaching staff for what they've done. But you're right, Pete. Blowouts at Providence, blowouts against Butler, beating DePaul by 20 on the road. I mean, I know it's DePaul, but come on. Of our last 3 wins, our last 3 games, we've won each by at least 10 points. So that's impressive coming down the stretch. Pete, now on the flip side, Villanova, you just mentioned, they have lost their last 3 games in a row, most recent being the loss at Xavier today, a 66-54 loss where they just don't look like the Villanova team of old. It seems like their back has been broken. And the first loss in that stretch, they've lost 3 straight, but 4 out of the last 5 have been losses. The first of those losses was against Marquette. And it really does seem that in some way, shape, or form, I don't know if it was something that Marquette was able to put on film against Villanova that other teams have been able to replicate to a certain degree. But you watched the Xavier game today just like I did, and that Villanova team could not respond to a Xavier run in a way that we're not used to seeing from Villanova teams.
Well, they don't have the defenders, and they don't have guys that can create shots outside of Booth and Pascal. Is kind of my 2-cent review on that team that I've only watched a few times this year. Now, I will say that so they've lost the last 3 games. They've all been on the road. They've lost 4 out of 5, like I mentioned. The 4 losses were on the road. The 1 win was at home against Providence. They haven't lost at home since that game you fondly remember, Mike, Furman against Furman Paladins.
That's right.
Back on November 17th. So it's not like we're going to just go in there and expect to run all over Villanova. That's not going to happen. But they don't really have an answer for Markus Howard defensively. And really outside of Pascal and Booth, like I said, I mean, they have to rely on the 3-point shot way too much.
Yeah, they have to rely on the 3-point shot. And I think as I'm thinking about this game, I got a number of thoughts about this game heading into Wednesday. And one of them is, if you look back at Marquette's record over this past season, who are the teams that have given Marquette the biggest fits? There are teams like Indiana, even though they have fallen off a cliff. We don't have to talk about that. But Indiana, Kansas, St. John's, Providence to a degree, these teams that are super athletic at every position, super long at every position, and have decent height. That is not this Villanova team. Yes, they have height and they have length and athleticism, but not to the extent that St. John's does, or that a Kansas does, or that an Indiana does. And so I think there's kind of a recipe for what type of team presents Marquette with the biggest challenge. And I just don't think it's this Villanova team this year. I'm not saying that means we're going to win, because, you know, this is not only in Philly at Villanova, this is on their on-court campus, which is a great place to see a game. It has the feeling of, you know, a Hoosiers scene. It's a tight high school type gymnasium. It's a tough place to play. And by no means is Marquette going to walk in there and just take the game without even trying. But I think for the first time in a number of years, this is a team that Marquette can match up well against, in part because of our defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can match up well against any team in the Big East for sure. And except for
St. John's.
Yeah, well, yeah, except for St. John's. I forgot about that. I erased that from the memory. But the added incentive of our guys, I mean, it's going to be – I think it's going to be the best game of the year in terms of intensity-wise.
We're going to come out with our hair on fire, right? Like, we're going to come out ready to knock down the goddamn door.
Well, we don't have any redheads.
Jeez.
All right, but hopefully we do. Metaphorically speaking, yes, absolutely. With a Big East championship on the line, Villanova's not going to come out timid or weak either after losing 3 in a row on the road. Their first game back at home in since Wednesday, February 13th. So basically, exactly 2 weeks. Yeah, exactly 2 weeks since their last home game. This is going to be super fun. I'm super excited. It's
going to be super fun. And it's funny, as you were just saying that Villanova is going to come out ready to play, literally we just got a text from Bubbles at the exact same time saying Nova will be desperate. We'll make that game even harder. It's true. It's good. Villanova's not going to lay down. And let's not lose the fact, even though they have lost 4 of their last 5, they still have a chance to win the conference championship. This isn't like they have fallen out and they are totally broken. This is a winnable game for Marquette, but you're exactly right. Brian Henry's exactly right. They are going to come out at home and be ready to go. So I'm wondering if there are, Pete, for you, if there are things you're looking at in this game where Marquette should specifically try to take advantage of. I think in the past we've talked about how are we defending Pascal. I think we've put Joey Hauser on him, and he's been a good option there. But I'm wondering if that's something you're looking at, or if there are other things within this game that you're expecting to see.
You called it, Mike. Give me all the damn Joey Hauser in the world. Give me him. That was one thing we kind of didn't really talk about too much in the Providence game. I thought, especially in that first half, Joey taking the ball to the rim was exactly what we needed. He was taking it 2 guys, spin move, drop step, finishing at the rim. It's exactly what we need from him. And then he was hitting his open shots when the ball came to him. He wasn't forcing anything, wasn't rushing it. And that was great to see because he was in a little bit of a slump there for the last 3 games or so, especially with his shooting. So that was it showed that he operates on a extremely high level as a freshman, to be struggling from the outside and to realize that in order to get that rhythm going, he needs to take it to the hoop. He did that perfectly against Providence. And so watching him to see if he can carry that over to the Villanova game would be my biggest key for sure. And obviously getting Marcus back healthy.
And getting Marcus back healthy. And I think that's a perfect segue. So at the time of recording, Wojo, and it's been reported more widely, I believe, by Ben Steele, this was a groin issue, a left groin issue. It's unclear the severity of the issue. I think clearly we didn't touch on this at the top, Pete, but clearly in the Providence game, Marcus wasn't himself. He still got 14 points, but you're watching him play. He was wincing. He was kind of holding his hand near his left groin. So clearly he was not himself in that game. And I think this isn't the first time this has happened, right? This has like popped up at least once or twice else in the season. Was this the same issue at Georgetown?
Well, I think he had it. No, I thought it was his back against.
Oh, that's
Georgia.
right. You're right.
It was his lower back. So luckily for him and for Marquette, it's a different issue. He was able to play the rest of the game, so that's a good indicator. But yeah, you get worried about back issues. Groin, not so much. Obviously, he's an All-American candidate, so we're going to very worried until we know and see him out in the court and see that he's fully healthy. But yeah, we need him because they don't have an answer for him. We've seen that.
And it sounds like not a dumb thing to say, but it sounds like the most obvious thing in the world to say, that you need Markus Howard on the court, on the road at Villanova to win a Big East championship. Of course you do. And we're not trying to break news by saying that. But look, when you go into those environments and you're on these big stages, you want a guy like Marcus leading your team. You want a guy who can handle the ball. I think Sakar has proven himself to be probably our second best ball handler. You can throw Chartouni in there for spurts, but he's still going to cough it up a few times if history is any indicator. So to not have Marcus as your primary ball handler and ball distributor is perhaps one of the biggest negatives for having him out, because this team has proven that, on the right night, they can put up points without Marcus, but it can sometimes be a challenge to distribute and run your offense if it's just going through Sakar. So I think that's obviously one thing to keep an eye out for. I don't have any expectation that Marcus will sit this game out. I think he's absolutely going to play unless something, dramatically changes. But obviously something to keep your eye out for heading into this game. Pete, you mentioned it. I think Bubbles actually mentioned it in the last pod that Theo John was able to, against Butler, play a foul-free or relatively foul-free game. Against Providence, that went the other way. He got himself into significant foul trouble and really took himself out of the game. Is there anything you would want to see more from Theo John aside from not foul more? Was there anything you saw in that Providence game that you think needs to be kind of fixed, repaired heading into Villanova?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Providence is an extremely physical team, maybe one of the most physical teams, maybe the most physical team we play this year, especially in the Big East. So I don't think there's anything that he really needs to change in that regard. Butler's probably one of the least physical teams, so you could kind of give that the reason for why he only had one against them. Villanova's probably kind of in that middle ground in terms of aggressiveness. I haven't seen the Ken Pom aggressiveness stat come out yet, but that would be interesting to see. But no, Theo needs to be Theo, man. He needs to get out there,
do what he does.
do what he does. Block shots, rebound the ball, and dunk it when he gets a chance to dunk it.
The Ken Pom numbers just updated ahead of this Villanova game. Villanova has dropped to 30th after their loss to Xavier in Ken Pom. Marquette remains ranked 24th in Ken Pom. But because we know statistics and stats aren't everything, this is still very much going to be a game. As we said on the last time Marquette played Villanova, Villanova is the type of team that is going to throw punches down the stretch to take you out of the game. Oddly enough, they weren't able to do that against Xavier today in their loss, but we would expect them to do so at home. If you're Marquette, Wojo's got to have these guys geared up. Yes, you want to stick in your game plan. Yes, you want to stick into, your routine that is so important for athletes. But these guys got to be gassed up for this. I would love to see this team just come out and take this thing, take this conference championship. What a moment for the program if they're able to do that. What a moment for these kids who have put in so much work. It's a huge opportunity. I'm a little bummed out that it's such a late game. I'm a new father, so staying up until 11:30 midnight on a work night is a little bit of a challenge. But
okay, well, new father. How many months old is
he's 8 months old. That's still new.
Okay, all right.
He's still waking up in the middle of the night. It's it's the way it goes.
I have no kids, so I shouldn't be talking anything.
Well, soon enough.
But the one thing we should clarify, Mike, is that if Marquette does happen to win against Villanova Wednesday night, they will earn the conference championship. They will not clinch it outright. They will do that if they win one more game out of the following three.
Right. So
they basically clinch at least a share of a tie with Villanova if they do win Wednesday.
So a lot to look forward to this week. Pete, this is real quick. I don't know. Before we get to the junk drawer segment, is this, in your opinion, the biggest Marquette game in X number of years? I mean, this game is huge for the program, in my opinion. Big night for the program Wednesday night. That's
the nice part about this season is that the games keep on getting bigger and bigger.
That's true.
Phil talked about it the last Villanova game. And like that one was the biggest. Yeah, now this one's the biggest. First game of the Big East tournament. That'll be the biggest because hopefully, expectedly, we got a 60% chance that we'll be the 1 seed come the Big East tournament. First time that's ever happened. First time we'll ever be the favorites. And I, for one, there's something about the Big East tournament and our struggles in it that kind of just irked me.
It's the boogeyman, right?
We've like never really been able to get past the hump. We never even made it. We have not made it to the championship game at all, going back to 2005. And so going in as the favorites, I will be very excited to see us and see how we perform in the Big East tournament. And hopefully St. John's kind of wraps up that 3 seed so that they can be on the opposite end of the bracket for us.
If we lose in the Big East tournament to St. John's,
give me St. John's in the championship. That's what I want.
That's what you want?
That's what I want.
I like the confidence. All right, so we're going to move to this junk drawer segment. I do not have anything prepared that is Marquette related, but I'm going to expand the universe of junk drawer items to a
going into the cosmos, huh?
To the cosmos, to the cosmos of the 5 of us, and I want to relate a story about our text chain. And I really just want to aim this at Brian Henry because he's going to, it's all about him. So we have this text chain. We talk about it pretty frequently, and there's 5 of us on it. It's one of those text chains where if it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you're firing on all cylinders and you want to start a conversation about something, do it. You're going to get a response. If it's
not from me,
not from you,
not at that time.
I mean, it's a great text chain. Not saying we're unique in that, but it's great. But there is one bad thing about it, and that is we've got 4 iPhone users on it, and one of us, who shall remain nameless, is not an iPhone user. And I have this sneaking suspicion.
His name's Brian.
I have this sneaking suspicion that one Android user is throwing off the whole timing of the text chain because I'm getting random messages at 1, 2, 3 in the morning that happened 6 hours earlier from conversations that happened 6 hours earlier. So I think we need to start a GoFundMe for a new iPhone for Brian Henry. I think that's what it really comes down to. I can't handle this anymore. So that's my junk drawer for the day.
Apparently he's building his own house, so he definitely needs to GoFundMe for a phone.
So, all right, Pete, what you got?
My junk drawer is it's a little tiny note card right out of the corner of the junk drawer. So do you know that the leader in 3-point field goal percentage for Marquette as of this day?
In program history or just –
No, in 2018-2019 season.
It was Joey Hauser earlier, but earlier in the season. I don't know if it's still him, though.
His name is Cam Murata. He's 1 for 2 for the year, so keep it up, Cam. Everybody was giving all sorts of accolades to Markus Howard his freshman year for shooting over 50% from 3. So hopefully Cam can keep it up.
Way to go, Cam. Shout out Cam Murata, Marquette's 2018-19 leader in 3-point shooting percentage. By the way, another junk drawer item. They mentioned this on the TV broadcast the other day. Sakar Annam, I don't know if this is true after the game, but heading into the win over Providence, Sakar was leading the Big East in field goal percentage in the month of February. Just a testament to what that kid's been able to do. If he can continue to do it, watch out.
Yeah, he's been incredible.
All right, folks. That's going to do it for us here today on the Real Chili Podcast. Thanks so much, as always, for listening in. Appreciate all the feedback. If you ever want to shoot us a note, go to realchili.com. You can send us an email. We're on Twitter at RealChiliPod. Find us there. Give us a follow. We're always happy to answer your questions and to engage. Thanks again for listening. Signing off for Pete Worth. And for everyone else here at the Real Chili Podcast, I'm your host, Mike Lavender. We'll talk to you next time here on the Real Chili Podcast.
Bring one out.